All right, welcome to the Explainer. We're going to look past the big headlines today, the ones about AI and giant robots. Instead, we're going to try and uncover a potential secret supplier that might just be at the very heart of the entire robot revolution. So, we're diving into some really fascinating analysis on what could be the next massive tech supercycle. I'm talking about embodied AI, where you take these huge language models, the brains, and you put them into actual robotic bodies. But here's the twist. The analysis we're breaking down suggests the one thing that makes this whole revolution possible, well, it's probably not what you're thinking. It's not just about making robots think like us. Nope. It's actually about how they feel the world. And this whole theory, it all centers on this tiny, kind of overlooked company and a really, really fundamental physics problem that every single walking robot has got to solve. Okay, let's get into it.
So look at this comparison. On one side, you've got your trillion-dollar AI behemoths, right? And on the other, you've got this company, Vishay Precision Group. We'll call them VPG. They're worth just over $500 million. And the core idea here, the big thesis, is that this little company could be the single most important picks and shovels supplier for the biggest names out there. We're talking Tesla, Figure AI, the whole crew.
Okay, so to really get why VPG matters so much, we have to talk about a core engineering problem. And that is, why is it so ridiculously hard for a robot with two legs to just not fall over?
Well, it all boils down to this thing called the zero moment point. I mean, think about it. A two-legged robot is basically a pendulum, but upside down. It's always on the verge of tipping over. So to stay standing, its brain, the computer, needs absolutely perfect real-time information from sensors in its feet to figure out where that balance point is and then, adjust itself constantly. But, and this is a big but, there's a huge problem. See, the robot's own motors, they're super powerful, and they generate a ton of heat. And that heat totally messes with the sensors. It causes this really dangerous thing called thermal drift. The sensor starts reporting, ghost forces, basically tricking the robot into thinking it's falling, even when it's standing perfectly still. And what happens? The robot overcorrects for a problem that isn't there, and boom, it falls down. And this right here, this is what perfectly shows VPG's competitive advantage, their technical moat. Your standard silicon sensors, yeah, they're really sensitive, but they basically get a fever from all that motor heat and start feeding the robot garbage data. But VPG's special metal foil, it's a proprietary alloy that's almost completely immune to temperature changes. It gives the robot the ground truth, data its AI can actually trust, and that prevents those catastrophic balancing mistakes.
All right, so let's connect some dots. Now, obviously, VPG is locked down by super strict NDAs. They can't just come out and say, hey, we supply Tesla. But the analysis we're looking at pieces it all together by digging through public records, like a detective. Let's look at the evidence and see how this case builds.
So check out the timing here, because this is where it gets really interesting. In late 2023, VPG announces a significant design win with some unnamed robot company that's in its beta phase. Okay. Then, just a month later, what happens? Tesla shows off Optimus Gen 2. And what do these specifically talk about? It's new force-sensing hands and feet. This pattern just keeps repeating. VPG's announcements seem to line up perfectly right before major Optimus news drops. The argument in the analysis is that this is way too specific to just be a coincidence. And then you have this quote. The CEO of VPG talks about getting a big prototype order from a second major customer in October. Now, can you guess who unveiled their brand new, ready-for-mass production robot, the Figure 03, that exact same month? Yep, Figure AI. I mean, all the clues are pointing in one direction. VPG is the go-to supplier for the two biggest humanoid robot programs in the West.
Okay, so with that connection looking pretty solid, let's talk about what this could all mean for VPG down the road. I mean, just how big could this whole market actually get?
And this is the critical part. You've got this absolutely huge gap between what different people are predicting. You've got the more conservative folks like Omdia saying maybe tens of thousands of robots by 2030. Then you've got Goldman Sachs, who are way more bullish, saying no, 1 million. And then you've got Elon Musk, who talks about making millions of these things a year. So VPG's future pretty much depends entirely on which one of these realities actually happens. Let's play out a few scenarios from the analysis. Okay. Scenario A. The institutions are right. The market grows, but slowly. In that world, VPG's regular business, plus this new robotics income, could maybe see its valuation double to around $1.2 billion. That's solid. It's good, but it's not going to change the world.
But what if things speed up? What if we get closer to that Goldman Sachs forecast? Well, that's when things start to get really interesting. Suddenly, the super high margin robotics money becomes a huge part of their business. And Wall Street would probably start treating VPG more like a fast-growing tech company, giving it a much higher valuation. In that scenario, the analysis suggests we could be looking at a company worth closer to $3.5 billion. And then there's the Musk scenario. If Tesla manages to deliver on even a fraction of what they're promising, and if VPG stays as the key supplier, well, the numbers just get insane. We're talking about a potential valuation of somewhere between $15 to $20 billion. That's like a 30x return from where it is today. Truly transformative. But, and there is always a but, this whole incredible, optimistic story faces one giant existential threat. And if you follow Tesla, you know exactly what I'm about to say. The single biggest risk is Tesla's obsession with vertical integration. They are famous for bringing everything in-house. They could just design their own sensors and cut VPG out completely. I mean, look at this job posting for the Optimus team. It's pretty clear. They're hiring engineers to own the ground-up design of novel sensors. That's not subtle. And it's not just about Tesla. There are other big risks, too. What if some future AI breakthrough makes these super precise sensors totally obsolete? Or what if, as the market gets bigger, cheaper competitors from China just flood the market with low-cost knockoffs? That could turn this amazing high-tech part into just another boring, low-margin commodity. So that's the dilemma, right? How do you weigh this incredible, potentially multi-billion-dollar opportunity against risks that are, well, they're significant and they are very, very real? And this gets us to the core idea of an asymmetrical bet. The way the analysis lays it out, the potential downside seems pretty limited. I mean, VPG is already a stable, profitable company, right? But the potential upside, well, it's just off the charts enormous. So the conclusion from the source material is this. With really high confidence, it seems VPG is the go-to supplier for both Tesla and Figure AI right now. But, and this is important, it's also super clear they have zero foothold in the fast-growing Chinese market. That supply chain is already being built locally over there. Which ultimately leaves us with the big question. Is VPG the gorilla glass of the robot revolution? That essential piece of tech that everybody needed for the first smartphones? Or are they just a temporary supplier, a stepping stone that the big guys will just engineer their way around once they figured out the really hard stuff? I guess that's what we'll all be watching.